Hey, today we're diving into one of the most critical yet challenging aspects of marketing technology management. That's the RFP process and vendor selection. Sounds simple, but it's not. With Martech now accounting for nearly a quarter of marketing budgets, getting this right is just as important, just as essential as anything you can do. So what we try to do is learn these things. Martech is costly. Start with a strategy. That's what you have to do. Test it in reality. Evaluate the ecosystem. Commit to decide. And then consider the bottom line always. Let me start with the sobering statistic. Most organizations replace their Martech tools within just 5 years or less. That's a short shelf life, if you will, and a significant amount of work being done to get there, right? So I think this may explain a lot. The true champions of Martech replacement are marketers, followed closely by executive management. And then, of course, this changing marketplace has a lot to do with all that because things happen fast, right? However, this is costly. It's called churn. And based on, besides being about 24% of marketing budgets, there's a hidden cost. That's that estimated 5,000 hours of your people devoted to something other than what they do on a regular basis. And here's a kicker. Research shows that we're only using about 31% of the capabilities that we're paying for. So we're essentially buying Swiss Army knives and only using the bottle opener. The traditional RFP process is designed for buying commodities, and that simply doesn't work when selecting strategic technology partners. That's the situation that really comes down to. So let's consider then the 7 keys to success. Number 1, establish, build the right process and timeline. And that is not to be less than the most important thing you do. Second, create RFPs that get meaningful responses. Third, we want to structure, organize for clarity and efficiency. Fourth, assess. Evaluate the proposals objectively, not just the greatest personal salesperson that you've ever met, the actual content of what they're talking about. Fifth, we want to compare the systematic solution analysis, have something that really pertains to our business, not just our interest in technology, which is the failure for a lot of these situations. Sixth, engage. Meaningful vendor interactions. We'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, evaluate. Always must evaluate. The bosses will expect that. We should deliver that. That's the way it comes down. In this session, I'll walk you through those 7 elements. But first of all, you can't really think about this RFP process like we used to, 2 to 3 months. It's now 6 to 9 months. It's a process that really gets to the details. Secondly, implementation is not 1 to 2 months anymore. It's more like 3 to 6 months. Third, value realization is immediate. Nope, it's not. It takes, you have to work these systems into our overall organization, which is why we use pilots, right? Negotiate a month-to-month extension before issuing an RFP. Why would you do that? Well, the purpose is that if you're currently working with a vendor, you don't want to signal to them that they're out the door, because then you'll stop getting their best work. And if you do signal that they're still in the running and they're in the hunt, and they probably are in the RFP process, then your current vendor will be accommodating. While they think they can retain your business, they actually are in the best position to understand what might be needed. So secure the extension before. Second thing we need to look at is a core team structure. The executive sponsor has a strategic vision that's turned over to a project lead. That person is a process owner. Then the teams, technical, functional, finance, and operations. So we have to get the architecture right. The marketing people have to be in place. There's a budget finance function here always. And then, of course, implementation. Who's going to make this all happen? And that moves us over to this, the alignment workshop, if you will. This is a process that everyone can and should get involved in the pilot project anyway to begin with. And essentially, we're looking at aligning business and technology priorities, defining non-negotiables versus nice to have, and then creating shared success metrics. The wrong approach to strategic foundation first, well, we need a CDP. Nope. We need to unify customer data to enable real-time personalization. You can see the trend here. What we're saying is don't get infatuated with the shiny objects. So next thing is we look at a feature list. No, not so much. Use cases. We want to see how this stuff works in the real world. Vendor confusion, often the case. We're trying to get clear requirements so the vendor understands what we want from a business perspective. Poor fit then should result in a strategic fit. That's our concept. That's the right approach that we take. So the professor says start with why, not what, current state challenges, desired future capabilities, measure outcomes, integration requirements, and of course, finally, success metrics. Always critical to everything we do. So, writing effective RFPs really become a pretty serious kind of a challenge. A traditional RFP approach had something to do with 250 plus checkbox requirements. Now it's 3 to 4 detailed use cases. Technical specs versus business scenarios. We're building this for our business success, and how do we generate value? How do we generate revenue? And then third, feature list used to be the thing, and now we're looking at outcomes. Outcome requirements. What questions? Nope. Now how questions. That's generally the scheme. Close Excel and open Word, says Tony Byrne of the Real Story Group. Avoid long checklists and tell digital stories instead so that your vendor can really understand in depth what you're trying to communicate. Here's the timeline. It used to be a different thing, but now we're looking at 4 phases. First of all, 4 to 6 weeks for gathering requirements, stakeholder workshops, and RFP creation, trying to get to the actual, the document we're trying to get to that defines what we want. Phase 2 is 3 to 4 weeks, which is we distribute to the 6 to 8 vendors. Maybe that's a lot to you, but the more the merrier at this point. Q&A period, and then a proposal submission from the vendors. Then we narrow it down in the initial review to 2 to 3 weeks in a Q&A period where we want to verify and clarify things with our vendors, and then actually end up with the final proposal submission. That's generally a 6 to 9 week process. Finally, phase 4 is 2 to 4 weeks where we negotiate and we contract. That's what it comes down to. Creating evaluation criteria. A balanced scorecard works. Weighted scoring framework, which might include functional fit, technical fit, vendor fit, commercial fit. Generally, we're looking for a simple little box on the right there. It says go, no go, as the professor says. Avoid overly complex scoring methodologies. Rank vendors according to your business objectives. The paper proposal used to be a good thing, but competitive proof of concept, traditional approach versus the modern approach. The traditional approach was always in reviewing proposals. Now we're looking at shortlisting 2 to 3 vendors to get down to the brass tacks. We pick a winner. Now we look 30, 60-day pilots, because the winner is not really found until after we've proved its success. Hope it works. Nope, we measure real results so that we get the results we want for the money that we pay. Hoping to cross the fingers on the traditional approach, a reality test on the actual modern day approach. 93% of CMOs now report measurable ROI from properly evaluated Martech. That's the way it turns out. So, structure for success. A full day agenda, for example, with the vendor. A morning session might include architecture and infrastructure, live integration and demonstration. Security, important to all people in the organization, and compliance walkthrough. API functionality, we know the API is the hinge point. We really make that work. In the afternoon, let's look at user experiences with real scenarios. Your real specific use cases will really help here, and then in reporting and analytics of this situation. Evaluating true user experience. Move beyond the demo script and the fancy sales pitches with good dancing and great vocals. Move on to the platform usability and the vendor ecosystem. Can a new user complete basic tasks without training? How many clicks to complete the common workflows? Mobile experience for field teams, error handling and recovery. Those are the things you're going to face every day once you actually buy into this stuff. You better know what's going to happen if they've got that figured out at the outset, not at the working point. Vendor ecosystems, size and activity of user community, third-party integrations. In other words, are they going to fit? Partner network and consultants, annual user conference attendance. That's what happens. We try to get ourselves together. Customer ecosystem vibrancy is the best predictor of a platform longevity. So, going deeper than satisfaction surveys, who to contact, recent implementations, a reality check, 3+ year customers, longevity test, similar size industry, relevance test, and both successful and challenged implementations. Over on the other side, what do we ask? That's who we contact. Now, what do we ask? What surprised you after signing? That's always a good one. If you could go back, what would you do differently? What's your actual total cost versus initial budget? And how often do you call support, for example? What happens? And if you do, call support. So the hidden evaluation factors really become the strategic intangibles of cultural fit, communication style, innovation velocity and R&D investment, financial stability and growth trajectory, executive commitment to your sector, flexibility in contracting and pricing, the red flags that we have to watch for, high customer or employee turnover by the vendor, frequent strategy pivots, they don't know what they're doing, over promising on the roadmap, we want under promise, over deliver, always, reluctant to provide references. If they don't, they probably don't have them. And then, of course, inflexibility in negotiations means they've never been through this process before. That's really what it comes down to. Contract negotiation strategy: start early, negotiate throughout. When to negotiate? With RFP response, establish the baseline. After shortlisting, leverage the competition. During the POC, address the discoveries. Before final selection, the final terms, and only after selection, no leverage. That's the problem there. You can't wait until after selection. Key negotiation points: payment terms and flexibility, SLAs, and performance guarantees. Termination and transition assistance, price protection and renewal terms, success metrics, and accountability. Remember, never buy licenses for potential future need, no matter how good the deal. Making the final decision. This is moving from the evaluation to the action decision framework. Review all documentation comprehensively. Conduct final stakeholder alignment. Document selection rationale. Create risk mitigation plan. Develop implementation roadmap. Define success metrics and checkpoints. The final critical step, or the critical final step, make a final decision. Many RFPs don't end in a decision because people get busy. Make this a priority. Better Martech means better outcomes and more revenue. Thank you so much. The key takeaways: time reality, plan for 6 to 9, not 2 to 3, strategic first, start with business outcomes, not tech categories, stories over checklists, use real scenarios, ask how, not what, test finalists in the final world outcomes, and then assess community and partner network, the ecosystem. Early negotiations: start out early. Let them know what they're going to expect when they're dealing with the final proposal. Use competition for leverage throughout. And then finally, the decision commitment: actually make a decision and move forward. Thanks so much. Hope that was helpful to you. We will be covering more of this in class.